The invasion and the beginning of erasure the Library of Timbuktu, Mali.
Mom, where did our stories go? Mom, why does the TV say we didn't have books in Africa? The question landed like thunder in a room that had only ever known silence. A young Malian boy, no older than 6, looked up with wide, honest eyes. His mother paused, the edge of a weathered book balanced in her hand, a book written not in European ink, but in the ink of her ancestors. She smiled gently and sat him on her lap. We didn't just have books, my child. We had libraries made of stars.
And so begins the story, a story ripped from the heart of Africa.
A tale of brilliance, betrayal, erasure, and resistance. The story of the Library of Timbuktu.
Before the ashes, the light of Timbuktu.
Long before the printing presses of Europe began to roll, long before Shakespeare ever picked up a quill, the desert winds of Mali whispered between parchment scrolls. Timbuktu was not a myth. It was a miracle. By the 14th century, this golden city in West Africa had blossomed into a center of enlightenment. It housed universities like Sankore, where students traveled from all corners of the Muslim world to study astronomy, medicine, geometry, philosophy, law, theology, and poetry. More than 700,000 manuscripts lined the shelves of families, scholars, and libraries across the city. Each scroll, handwritten on goat skin or paper, contained multiverses, mathematical formulas, ethical debates, spiritual reflections, trade records, and philosophical treatises that rivaled those of ancient Greece or Baghdad. Africa wasn't behind. Africa was ahead. The Arrival of Shadows, Morocco's Invasion, 1591. History doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it arrives on camelback. In 1591, under the command of Sultan Ahmad al-Mansur, Moroccan forces swept across the desert, iron and fire replacing parchment and peace. The excuse? Control of the trans-Saharan trade routes. The real cost? The soul of African intellectualism.
Timbuktu fell.
Libraries were raided. Scholars were exiled, imprisoned, or executed. And with them went centuries of knowledge. But something strange happened, something the invaders hadn't anticipated. The people didn't give up. They hid their scrolls in clay pots, buried them in walls, and passed them like sacred relics through generations. Knowledge, it turned out, was not so easy to kill. The silence of empire, colonialism's second erasure. Centuries passed, but Africa's brilliance remained under siege. European colonial powers followed Morocco's shadow with even greater appetite. France, Britain, Germany, they weren't just after land. They were after minds. To colonize a people, one must first convince them they had no history worth remembering. European academics wrote off Africa as the dark continent. They painted Africans as illiterate, primitive, and dependent. Timbuktu, if it was mentioned at all, was described as a legend, a rumor of gold and mystery. Not one syllable about its ancient libraries. Not one whisper of its astronomers who charted the stars before Copernicus. But those scrolls remained. They watched silently from their hiding places, like old gods waiting to be remembered. The Scroll Keepers, a legacy in exile. The Ahmed Baba Institute. The Abubakar Ben Essaout Library. Families like the Haidaras and Cisse. These were not just names. They were guardians. Quiet revolutionaries who risked everything to preserve what the world had chosen to forget. With trembling hands, grandmothers unrolled manuscripts wrapped in goatskin. With defiant pride, fathers passed on knowledge that once taught astronomers to track Venus across the heavens. They didn't have armies, but they had memory, and that was enough.
Flames again, the modern threat.
In 2012, during the Malian conflict, jihadist militants stormed Timbuktu. The city, now a UNESCO heritage site, became a battlefield once more. Again, libraries were threatened. Again, manuscripts faced destruction. But this time, the world watched, and the guardians moved faster. Thousands of ancient texts were smuggled out in rice sacks, taxis, boats, and baskets. Some traveled hundreds of miles, hidden under vegetables and blankets. It was not just a rescue mission. It was a defiant roar. You will not erase us again.
What the scrolls say?
The manuscripts of Timbuktu are not relics. They are revelations. They tell of women scholars debating theology, of black scientists correcting Aristotle, of African doctors diagnosing with empathy. They contain maps, diagrams, and cosmological charts that challenge every Western myth of African backwardness. And in each word, there is proof, not just that Africa had a past, but that it led the future before it was robbed. The story walks again. Today, digitization projects, local scholars, and global alliances work to preserve Timbuktu's legacy. But that's not enough. The world must remember. Every time a child wonders if their people had knowledge, someone must whisper, yes. And it's buried in Mali's sands. Every time a textbook omits Africa's role in human progress, someone must write a new chapter. Because the invasion may have started the erasure, but the people never allowed it to end. Epilogue, Echoes in the Dust. Mom, can I be a scroll keeper when I grow up? The mother looked down at her son, pride in her eyes. She handed him the weathered manuscript and whispered, You already are.